Dr. Carol Kashefi, and I'm a urologist at Scripps Clinic Medical Group in San Diego, California, United States. And I'm happy to talk about urology here in the United States. There, of course, the United States is a huge country. There's lots of differences, state to state, county to county, and even within the same city in terms of different practice patterns. So I'll be able to talk a little bit about my little tiny neck of the woods here. And today is actually my day off, so I decided this is the perfect time to try to make a video. Hope it's not too boring. And it's also May 4th, so may the 4th be with you. This is our Torrey Pines Clinic. It's our home base. These are our examination rooms. Pretty basic stuff. Little ultrasound machine. And we have one of two nursing stations. These are our procedure rooms. Getting ready to perform cystoscopies. One of the setups already. In our particular cystos, we have these clear plastic sheets that go over our cystoscopes, so the turnover time is a lot faster between cystoscopy to keep them clean. We also do vasectomies in that room. This is our little lab where we run urinalyses and also make up medications for injection. And this is one of our nurses' stations. And this is our lovely scheduling station for surgical scheduling. There they are. And then along the wall here we have our doctor's offices. There's today is only a couple doctors today, including myself. And we have the second nurse's station here, and our physician assistant, Julie Vermeers. Morning. And our lovely nurse, Paige. And the offices continue that way. And then here's my office. And yeah, so got a lovely view of the parking lot. The sad part is that on the other side of this building is the ocean, which would be nice if we could see, but we're not complaining. To become a urologist in the United States, we have, of course, lots of schooling, just like you all do. Starting after high school, which is when you turn 18 years old, you've completed your high school degree. You go on to what we call college or university, and that would be 4 years of that, where you major in some degree. And it doesn't have to be a science degree, but you do need to have your prerequisites for medical school completed as well. And I did biology, that was my choice. After those 4 years, you then go on to medical school, and medical school is also 4 years. And after you've completed medical school, you have your medical degree. You are officially a doctor. You have an MD behind your name. And those 4 years of medical school are split up into 2 preclinical years, where you're basically just sitting in a lecture hall and learning didactically. And then the second 2 years, you are learning more clinical medicine, and you're actually doing your clinical rotations there. That's, again, before you're a full-fledged doctor, you are figuring out what specialty you want to do the last 2 years of medical school. And we have in our 3rd year of medical school a set requirement of core stuff that we need to do, like pediatrics, internal medicine, surgery, radiology, psychiatry, all these different cores that we need to learn. And then we start to be able to choose more electives in our 4th year before graduation. And within surgery, we can choose, I think, from 6 or 7 subspecialties. So you have to do a few weeks of general surgery with a couple weeks each of 2 different surgical subspecialties. And I happened to choose urology. primarily because I had a really wonderful lecture in my second year of medical school by a female urologist, and I think that's what helps, just seeing representation. And it was no big deal to see a female urologist in my group, so I was like, all right, well, let me try it out, and it was amazing. I thought it was the best thing on earth. I never laughed so hard. Urologists, at least in the United States, tend to have a really good sense of humor, and made surgery very enjoyable. There's also a lot less surgical emergencies in urology, so I think that makes for a very good quality of life, and therefore your personality can be good. You don't get worn down by the stressors for something like general surgery, for example, which can be really, really tough ones. And there are some programs that are quite malignant in the United States. So after your 4 years of medical school, you get your MD, but you can't really practice on your own yet because you now need to complete residency. And residency these days is either as short as 3 years for family medicine, or as long as 7 years for neurosurgery. And that's really the typical range of years of residency. Pediatrics, I believe, is 3 or 4 years. Internal medicine is 4 years. Urology is 5 or 6 years. And of course, when I went to my residency, it was 6 years. And then soon after I graduated, it became 5 years. So that's how it is. But after the 5 years, then you have your full board licensure and you can go ahead and practice on your own. Some opt to do fellowship, and that's the last bit of extra training. If anybody wanted to do further training within their specialty, they can subspecialize, and that's what we have. A couple of our partners in our office here, they went on and did specialties. Actually, we have 3 out of the 6 of us went on and did fellowship. One went on and did a female urology fellowship, which was, I believe, 2 or 3 years after residency. Another one did reconstructive and trauma surgery, and another one did oncology. So he specializes in cancer, surgical cancers, of urologic cancers, and then the other gentleman does a lot of reconstructive surgery, particularly urethral strictures. And then Dr. Kang, our female urologist, does a lot of the pelvic organ prolapse repairs, those kind of more complicated types of repairs. So, and then the rest of us, the other 3 of us that chose not to do fellowship, we're the general urologists, and we love it that way too. So actually, I wanted to mention also, I think it's helpful to know how old you are when you finish. So I never took any breaks or pauses from high school on, and I was 32 years old when I finally finished all of my training to become a urologist. So it's 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 6 years of residency, and then you can finally be your own doctor and not need supervision. So the types of surgical cases that we tend to see, my practice is general urology, so I pretty much see a little bit of everything. There are some exceptions, which I like to defer to some of my partners who subspecialize, like, for example, taking out a prostate for prostate cancer, or a cystectomy for bladder cancer. Some of the laparoscopic cases, pretty much now I refer to the guys that basically do them exclusively. And that's just how medicine is these days. There's so much now subspecialization, and it's to the benefit of the patient that somebody is being operated on by somebody who's doing a ton of that particular type of surgery, given the complexities of these more invasive operations. So a general urologist, typically in the United States, will do cases like transurethral resection of bladder tumors, kidney stone surgeries endoscopically usually. We still do shockwave lithotripsy. We also, I love doing percutaneous nephrolithotomies. It's a shame I won't be able to show you that particular surgery this week, but they are definitely my favorite cases because you can just take out a 3 or 4 centimeter stone in one surgery, and it's pretty remarkable. through a 1 centimeter incision, which is actually the best part of it all. The other types of surgical cases that I love doing as well are things for overactive bladder, specifically InterStim is what the Medtronic company that makes the device called InterStim is a sacral nerve neuromodulator. Not sure if they're internationally used, but we use that pretty commonly for refractory overactive bladder, and that can be very helpful. It has a 67% success rate, and basically we're placing a tiny pacemaker wire in the third sacral nerve, which is the nerve that regulates the bladder function and to some extent the rectal function as well. And it's been FDA approved for urgency urinary incontinence as well as fecal incontinence for about 20 years now. And it can be useful in about 67% of patients. So we do a trial. We do a 2-week trial with the wire in place and a temporary battery inside the dressings. They go home, and then 2 weeks later they come back and report to us if it helped. And if it did help, then we put in the permanent pacemaker battery, which is about the size of a silver dollar. I don't know what that equivalent is in British pounds, but that is the device. It's basically just a pacemaker, but for the sacral nerve. And I'll be doing a part 2 of that procedure. If the patient responded well, we'll put the battery in on Thursday, which I hope to show you. The process of us receiving referrals is pretty streamlined, particularly in my hospital setting, because we are a network and we have a network of about 900 doctors in the county of San Diego, and that's to help provide access to everything that they need. So we have primary care doctors, GPs, if you will, who are seeing the patients and referring to specialists. We receive the referral from the specialist, but depending on the type of insurance the patient has, they can also self-refer. If they have a special type of insurance, they don't need to have their primary care doctor refer them. They can make an appointment for themselves. As you can see, those types of insurance plans are going to be more expensive. They have to pay higher premiums per month to be able to do that. And there's a reason. There's unfortunately a lot of times patients make appointments a little prematurely, and it could have been taken care of by their GP. So this is kind of one of those situations where sometimes it's nicer if the patient is referred, so that the patient might avoid the need for an unnecessary referral. Anyways, that's how it is here. And it's nice and integrated, so it's all inclusive. It's kind of like a nice system at Scripps, but that is not the case all over the United States. Most other places that don't have a medical center are basically getting referrals kind of haphazardly. There's also a lot of advertising that they have to do to make their name known as specialists so that they can get the referrals. Not only advertising to the public, but also having to knock on the doors of all the primary care doctors in their area, say, hey, I'm the new urologist here, please refer your patients to me. So that's very common. And it's tough for some new urologists that are in that kind of setting to get their patient population started because of that there's usually a pretty concrete patient referral plan, but the primary care doctor always sends a patient for urology to this doctor or that doctor, and that's it. And unless they're hearing feedback that's negative about that specialist, they don't usually change their referral pattern. So it can be difficult for new doctors coming into that kind of system. Historically, that is how the system always was. And historically, we're talking 30 years ago, it's really changed in the last 25, 30 years. Most physicians had to also be small business owners, essentially. They had to be running a business, advertising, being the employer of several staff in their clinics, and it's a lot to deal with, and then also be a doctor at the same time, which I was never interested in that side of medicine. I just wanted to be the doctor. So working at Scripps was actually perfect for me. So a typical clinic day involves seeing roughly 20 patients in a day. New consultation visits take about 30 minutes. They get a 30-minute time slot, and return patients get 15 minutes on average. We do also do procedures such as cystoscopies and prostate biopsies and vasectomies on those clinic visits. For a typical surgical day involves, depending on the location, if it's in the hospital setting, if I'm doing inpatient cases or surgeries at the Green Hospital, then I will do sometimes 7 or 8 surgeries in a day. These are typically short surgeries, but I do lots of them in a day. And then in my afternoon sessions where I'm working at the Ambulatory Surgery Center, I can do up to 5 cases in an afternoon. And today, due to some cancellations, we have 3 today. And today, I'm in the Ambulatory Surgery Center doing our outpatient surgeries. This location is about 15 miles from the clinic that I was in. For today, I have a intravesical Botox injection, which I'll show you. And this is for a female that has refractory overactive bladder, and she has tried all the medications for overactive bladder, but still continues to have issues, and has found intravesical Botox to work very well in relaxing the detrusor muscle of the bladder enough to allow her to be basically free of diapers and pads. Let's go. So this is our Botox patient. We are about to give 100 units of intravesical botulinum toxin A in the detrusor muscle of the bladder. In her case, her bladder is very hyperactive and non-responsive to medication. She's going to inject the air out of the needle first. Okay. Go ahead. 1 cc. Alright, and then 1 cc. We basically do a pattern over the bladder where we avoid the ureteral orifices because we definitely don't want paralysis of those muscles. 1 cc. So I have a long cystoscopic needle inside the cystoscope, and I inject it into the detrusor muscle and not at the submucosa because it won't do any good there. 1 cc. And yeah, that's how it is. The patients that undergo InterStim, as I mentioned earlier, have refractory overactive bladder, but they find that having a pacemaker works better for them than having to come in twice a year for Botox injections, which are not a permanent solution. So for those patients that it works for, that 67% where it actually works, then we go in and put the battery that I showed earlier. So today is the day where we're putting the battery in on a lady that I performed an InterStim wire placement 2 weeks ago. She returns telling me today that she had 80% resolution of her incontinence. She was going through 4 to 5 pads a day, and is now down to 1 to 2 pads a day, and is extremely happy with that because even the pads themselves are thinner pads. While it's not 100% resolution, that's really rare to achieve 100%. We hope for at least 50% improvement, and that is what qualifies as a success. And in her case, she's extremely happy, so we're going to go ahead and put the battery in today, and we'll show that today. So this is our patient's torso, and right here is the central median aspect. The natal cleft is right here, and the patient's head is up here. And we have the small incision here. Inside is the temporary connection from the wire, which is in the sacrum right down here, all the way running here, temporarily connecting to the battery that was connected but is now disconnected as we get ready to do the battery placement. So in the end, we'll be removing this wire and connecting the internal wire to the new pacemaker battery. We'll show that in a second. 15 kV. Thank you. So we're just reopening the incision that has the temporary connector between the pacemaker wire in the third sacral nerve and the temporary battery that she had earlier. And we'll take a try. There's our connection. There it is. And then we're going to cut out a section and leave the one that's actually in the sacral nerve. Heavy scissors. And then this part we will just discard. This is the part we don't need anymore. Alright, now we'll take the screwdriver. Discard that. So this is the other end of the lead. The other end of this is all the way down to the third sacral nerve. And we're going to connect that to our little battery. Let's get our battery.
7 in the morning, I start. Incision was 12:20. Nobody knows the CPT code for this procedure, do
We do. Michael can tell you.
they? Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. He's probably got it memorized. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and open the incision just a little bit more, a couple of center retractors, and section the smoke figures. That center retractor as well. 45 centimeters. We just need to make a pocket for our battery, a little bigger. That's it. And then we just slip this guy in, just like that. The solution to pollution is dilution. That's what we get taught in med school. Always irrigate before you put any kind of permitting device in. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and close it out. We'll start with the bicurl. We're just doing the deep dermal layer,
And
and after that we'll do the subcuticular.
my niece,
Yep. Okay. And that's alpha and that's beta. And that's it. So this is the flexible ureteroscope. You see it's quite long and narrow, and it has a pivot at the end. You can curl the ends to kind of get wherever you need to get with this little handle at the end here. And then we have our regular rigid cystoscope. That's the part that goes into the bladder. We just dismantled it, but he'll put it back together.
take another OR.
And this way we have a lens
and the sheath, and that goes into the bladder. And that's how we do most cystoscopy cases these days, and that's it. You're on. All right, so we are in the kidney. There's a nice fluoroscopic image of the camera into the kidney there. These stones are not so visible anymore. They were shockwave lithotripsy a few weeks ago. I attempted to go inside the right ureter to break them up further, but I wasn't able to get in. And so I had to leave a stent, a ureteral stent, to dilate the ureter. And now we are in the kidney successfully this time because the stent dilated the ureter. And we're looking at one of the upper to mid pole calyces of the kidney. And there's a little tiny clot in there, no big deal, and 2 stones. And there's a laser fiber right there that I'm using to now break up the stone. We'll do that right now. It's a little tough because of some movement. And the idea here is you can gently irrigate with some small amount of pressure just to keep the flow. Thank you. Without moving the stone too much, hopefully. You can see it breaks up slowly. And with direct vision, you can try to avoid damaging the mucosa of the kidney. Once it's broken up into half, each one's broken into half, I'll try to basket them out. And I'll show you that in a second. Basket here. So this is our little basket. Let's go ahead and open it. And you can see that's the size of the basket. Close it. And we're going to go ahead and pop that into our ureteroscope and get it all the way up to where the stones are in the kidney. And close. Now this guy might not be able to make it come over good. It's going to come through the sheath. It's just small enough to get through the sheath. Open. And there's our little guy right there. Our little stone. We're going to keep doing that back and forth until we get it all out. That's how it goes.
So this was my day, and I hope you got something out of it and it was interesting and informative. Of course, this is just a snapshot of one doctor's day, and this is not at all representative of all of urology in the US. And I do hope that if surgery is something that interests you, that you really look into urology. It's really a fantastic field. It allows you to operate on a large area of the body. You're not hyper focused in one spot only, like for example the eye or the head and neck. Nothing against them, but if you like to operate in the abdomen and the pelvic area, and also be able to see patients clinically in the office and maintain long-term relationships with patients, not just wham bam thank you ma'am kind of situation, then this is really a great field and I highly recommend it. Plus, given the fewer urologic emergencies, it does lead to a more conducive lifestyle for being there with for your family and friends, which is always really important too. If you ever come to San Diego, please make sure you do not come on May or June, because it is May gray and June gloom. The weather is just cold and windy and gray. So if you want to have real sunny San Diego weather, just come any other time of the year. All right. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.